Welcome to the Website Success Show, the podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow without the social media treadmill. I'm Jules White, the founder of the Website Success Hub, and I believe that social media is optional. Here we talk about how to get found on Google, show up in AI search, and turn your website into your hardest working team member, so your business grows without you being glued to your phone. If you're done with the algorithm and ready to build something that lasts, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the Website Success Show. It's Jules here, and today I had an episode that was going to be called Your First 90 Days Without Social Media. But as I was gathering some thoughts on this, I realised it's been 6 months since I decided to break up with social media. So I thought I would just, instead of recording Your First 90 Days Without Social Media, I thought I'd just record on my thoughts on this and any advice that I would give you really to just help you understand the ups and the downs. And there's not that many downs, I have to say, but just to help you understand how it's gone over the last 6 months and what a difference it's made to my business. And I hope you find it helpful. So when I started really diving into this, I almost then didn't record this episode because I started to get a little bit of imposter syndrome, as we do, about it not being the massive success and the massive game changer in my business that potentially you would want as a sensational, like, yeah, I did this and it magically fixed everything. And that's not what happened. So let me take you back to the end of January when I decided that I was done with social media. And I have been skirting around this forever in my business, always really. Back in 2022, when I just started my business, the way that I found the Female Entrepreneur Association and got involved in that network and that community was from Googling, can you grow a business without social media? And I found one of Carrie's videos, and, so it's always been there. It's definitely always been there in my business. It's always been there for the podcast as well. So even the second episode, I think, is around social media and how you can break free from it. So definitely it's always been there in the background. I've always been skirting around it up till this year. I hadn't been brave enough to just see how it goes. And I say that, but actually with the podcast, when I started the podcast 2 years ago, I made that deliberate decision that I was never going to grow it on social media. I never promote it on social media. I never pay for ads. And I'm so glad that I did that. That has been one of the best decisions I've made in my business. I have just crossed over to 16,195 downloads. So that is fantastic because it's never been promoted on social media. And when I talk to people, they seem to really love that. They love that success story. They love that proof that these things can work, that you can actually promote things and grow your business without having to depend on social media. And so at the end of January, I decided, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? If I do it, if I decide to break up with social media and it doesn't work, and it's, the worst case scenario is I go back to using it every now and again, which is all I was doing as well. That's probably one thing I would say, is that I wasn't massively using social media to promote my business anyway. I certainly have over the years. I've had launches and times when I was more active on social media, but it's never been a massive part of promoting my business. I never had the apps on my personal phone, so I didn't spend hours and hours scrolling social media, I thought. But what I have realised is that it was taking up more time than I thought. I was spending more time on there, and it's just the little snippets of time. I think that's the thing where it really sort of steals your time and steals your attention. And so I thought, well, let's go all in. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that's going to happen? I didn't do any public big announcements about it. I was in my NatWest Accelerator program and I did announce it in the group, and everybody seemed to really love that as well. I think it definitely resonated with people. And so that was the end of January. And then February was my best month ever in my business. And I love that. I love the fact that happened. And I definitely was more focused. I was doing more relationship building and more getting to know people in the local area. So I definitely feel like that was a big part of it, was the fact that I was actually getting out and talking to real people, having real conversations, and doing the other things that I have now started doing that are helping me to grow without socials. And I think that was part of the reason why I had these hesitations, really, is because, yes, I broke up with social media and then I had my best month ever. But that doesn't mean that the following months were then also my best months ever. So business is very up and down, especially if you are a small business owner, especially if you are a service provider, or you naturally have a business where you always need new people coming into your business, which my business is definitely like that. I'm not an SEO agency, so I don't get you on the books and then just keep charging you money forever deliberately. You know, my goal with my business is that I help you to understand what you need to do with your SEO and with your marketing and with your website so that you then don't need me. You don't have to rely on me. And that is part of the reason why I need to keep marketing my business. I do have the website Growth Club, which is amazing, and I love having people. They generally will stay in there for the accountability, for the support, for the Q&As, but it's something that in terms of like one-to-one services, I always need new people coming in. And even with the membership as well, I am growing it, I'm trying to grow it, and I need leads all the time, as the majority of businesses do, really. My hesitations around recording this was that I didn't drop social media and then suddenly get onto the 10K months. And let's talk about the 10K months, because I feel like this is part of the reason why we often feel like we're not succeeding and not successful, because we've all bought into this story. We've all been told this story about if we're not hitting a particular figure, whether it is 10K, 20K, 5K, whatever it is, that if we're not hitting these particular numbers in our business, then we are failing. But for many small business owners, that shouldn't be the case. And if you are doing what you need to in your business to pay the bills and to have the lifestyle that you like, then why should we then be trying to hit these magical numbers that, yeah, lovely, we'd all love to be doing these big numbers potentially, but not if it then steals your sanity, means you've got to spend all of your time on social media, you've got to do loads of marketing that you hate doing in your business, and generally it makes you miserable. So I think this time away from socials has helped me to have a little bit less of that, buying into the success that is deemed as this public number, that if you're not scalable, if your business isn't growing that way, if you're not selling to the masses, then your business isn't a success, really. So I think definitely being more involved in local business communities has helped me with that, helped me to see the people that are out there getting on with it, working with real clients, working with customers, making money, and just happier because they aren't feeling like that constant feeling of, I should be doing more, I should be part of what I wanted to share in terms of how I felt like the hesitations around that, really. One of the things that I would say is that when I looked at my own podcast numbers, I'd definitely making some assumptions around this. So I looked back over the last 6 months, what's happened with the podcast downloads each week. And downloads is a bit of a vanity metric. It doesn't necessarily lead to clients, but I do find that the more people that listen to the podcast, the more my email list grows, the more discovery calls I get coming in. And that's fantastic. And generally, if people come into a discovery call and they've been listening to the podcast, they are way further along the buyer's journey. They pretty much know that they already want to work with me. They just want to find out the best way for that to happen, really, because they've had me in their ears. I've had people come on and say, I feel like I know you, Jules, because you've been in my ears for the last 2 weeks. And that's amazing. It's a really quick way for people to get to know people like you, they like the sound of you, and they understand how you work. And I think the podcast has been fantastic for that. I thought the podcast was doing about 100 downloads a week. And when I looked at the numbers, over the last 6 months, it's actually been about 2.5 times that, which is amazing. And I'm so pleased to have actually discovered that. And that doesn't necessarily mean 250 people a week listening to the podcast, because people sometimes download the back catalogue, or you get the same person listening to a few episodes. And that's why you tend to measure it on the number of downloads an individual episode has when it first gets released, because generally then that's, the number of kind of listeners you've got. I'm still okay with 250 downloads a week. I'm really pleased with that. If you'd have told me that 2 years ago, that I would be at that point, be at over 16,000 downloads and having that number of downloads a week, I would be over the moon. And what I also love is when I meet people in real life or on a Zoom call or something, if they're listening to the podcast, they tell me they're enjoying it. And that's what this is all about, that they find it helpful, maybe find it interesting and entertaining and, or no, I don't know, entertaining is not the right word. I'm not an entertainer, but it's, it's nice to listen to and you get some value from it. That's my main things that I enjoy about the podcast, and that I feel like I'm building this bank of content as well, really. So that's one thing I would say is it's always good to know your numbers. And I think this is really important with social media. And if you're thinking about leaving social media, then it's really important to understand what your numbers are, what it's actually doing for your business. Look at your Google Analytics, look at your data around that and see whether social media is actually bringing people into your business. So let's sort of talk about how it's actually felt these last 6 months. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed not having that feeling of there's always something more that I should be doing. I should be creating a social media post. I should be interacting. I should be connecting with people. I should be growing my followers. I should be should. All of these shoulds that we kind of feel like we should be doing. And once I took that off the table, once I then was like, no, I'm done with it, it's been so freeing, I have to say. So as I say, I wasn't a massive social media user anyway. So it wasn't like this was 5 hours of my day. But even still, even with the short amount of time that I would use it each day, and it was probably a lot more than I thought actually, I still noticed a massive difference of just not having that pull there of, I'll just quickly check, I'll just see what's going on, or those kind of things, where once you actually remove that from your business, it's just one less thing to focus on. And I think my big thing this year has been about being intentional. So living a life where I'm not being pulled to do things that I will look back on my life and wish I hadn't sat scrolling my life away, basically. I don't always do it, definitely. I sometimes still fail, and I'm not scrolling social media, but there's still things on the internet on your phone and just scrolling for garden ideas and all of that kind of stuff that I feel like that it's an ongoing project to get less time on my phone, basically, less time on the internet, less time in front of screens. I think that's the big thing. AI is definitely contributing to that as well. I want less time with all of that kind of stuff, really. Less time with the tech, more time with the real world, relationships with people, living and actually doing real life stuff rather than just this digital life that we seem to have all fallen into, I think, really. So it was definitely freeing. I got so much more mental clarity back, especially in the first couple of months, where I really noticed that a lot of the noise in my head had kind of quietened down a little bit. A lot of the imposter syndrome and a lot of the comparisonitis, which is definitely still there, but there's a lot less of that now, actually, of that constant failure feeling because we're not doing as much as other people and our lives aren't as good as the storyboard version that we see, the edited reel that we see on social media. I definitely feel one of the big benefits of it is that you kind of get your brain back a little bit. And it's not to say that it magically fixed all the issues we have with attention span and shiny object syndrome. And I definitely still have that, but it makes a big difference not to have that extra noise. I think that's what it is. It's just noise coming into our brains when we're on there on social media, and it's just all of this too much stuff coming in, really. So one thing I should mention, because this was again something else where I felt a little bit like, I don't know, what are people going to think if I say this? I actually still have to go onto Facebook once a week because I'm a swimmer. I have to log in to see if there's a swim going on in the community that I'm in. Can I ask you a question? When was the last time you gave your Google business profile a proper health check? Local search is changing quickly. Google and AI search are getting much better at recommending businesses, which means your profile has never been more important. That's why I'm running the Local Visibility Workshop on Wednesday, the 5th of August, 4 p.m. UK time. It's a live, hands-on Zoom session where we'll improve your profile together. So you don't just leave with ideas, you leave with a better profile. Head to the website successhub.com/GBP and grab your tickets for just £47. I'd love to help you make it easier for Google and AI search to recommend your business to more local clients. And if when I do that, I see in my notifications I've been tagged, then I will go and have a look at that. And I try not to do any interaction on that actual post. But if somebody has tagged me in a group, someone looking for help with SEO or looking for an SEO expert or whatever, I don't want to just ignore that. I feel like that's part of this relationship building, is if anybody ever tags me and I hear about it, I will always reach out to them and say thanks. I think it's really important to do that. If you want people to keep tagging you, then show a little bit of appreciation around somebody actually tagging you. And so there's that. So I definitely don't ignore everything. If I see that I've actually specifically been tagged and it's something where someone is, recommending me, I will make sure that I then send them a message and say thanks. And normally what I will also do is then message the person who has originally asked, just send them a message. That doesn't always play out because sometimes people don't get those messages, but I'm deliberately trying not to then interact on the posts when people do tag me. That's kind of where the downside of this is. The one thing that social media is handy for is being able to DM people. And again, there's probably good and bad with that if you're getting DMs from spammy people who you weren't asking to DM you. Maybe like someone who's been tagged on a post or something. But anyway, it is handy to be able to send people a message. If somebody messages me on Instagram, that comes straight through to FEA Create. And I love that because it means that I can answer that message without actually having to log into Instagram. I normally log into LinkedIn about once a fortnight as well and see if there are any messages in there. And that's all I do, log in, answer messages if there are any that are actual messages from people who I've met. Normally I will try and then say, I don't log in very much. So if you want to connect, here's my number, or tend to at least explain that I don't come back to people on LinkedIn very quickly. And you might think that I'm a hypocrite for doing that. And that's fine. That's your opinion. What I would say about that is that I don't want to cut my nose off to spite my face. So I feel like that is my kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not even middle ground because it's, completely different to that constant pull of being on there all the time. It's intentional. I guess that's the thing, is it's intentional. I intentionally will log in and check my messages and just build those relationships on there, really. So that's the only time really that I use it. And within those first few months, you have to break the habit. And I think to begin with, there was that habit. And I have things like I've got a blocker app on my phone. And as I say, I don't have the apps. So if I do log in, that's probably another thing I should say. If I do log in to check messages or anything, I will do that on a desktop anyway. So I don't go onto the websites on my mobile. But breaking that habit, is probably one of the hardest things, really. And actually, one thing I used to do when I used to use social media, and this helped me a lot, was I used to limit myself to 20 minutes of scrolling 3 times a week. And as soon as I started doing that, then I found that I didn't actually want those 20 minutes. After a while, because you break that habit, those 20 minutes didn't seem so important, and actually I didn't bother then, and I was quite good at sort of weaning myself off of it then, before I even broke up with social media. So one of the things that has happened when I've been doing a promotion, so when I've been promoting something, at the moment I'm promoting my local visibility workshop, and I did get that thought of, social media could be a place to promote this. And obviously I wasn't going to do that, but I noticed the thought being there of, I wonder if I promoted it on socials, whether I'd get some more sales. And that was something I just wanted to note, that I had that thought there. Maybe I would have done, but for me, it wouldn't have been worth that 1 or 2 extra sales because of what it would cost me to be able to do that. So it cost me in time, mental clarity, the whole thing of building a business that's successful without social media. And that is the direction my business is going in. It's now what I absolutely believe in, that it is possible, and I want to inspire other people and bring other people together who also have that mindset that they don't want to rely on social media. And one thing is, it's optional. That's what I would say. Social media is optional. So I never want it to be that social media is forbidden, or social media is, you can't use it. It's the whole thing of optional. So if you choose, like for me, if I choose to use it occasionally for checking messages and for checking my swim group, that's okay, because it's my option and I choose to do that. But the whole thing with this is the lie that we're sold that you cannot have a successful business without social media. And that's what this is all about. That's what this whole message and this whole 6-month experiment has been about as well. So one of the things that I have definitely approached differently, and another one where I've just found that slight, I would want to say problem or slight hiccup, is when you meet people. So when you're networking or when you just generally meet people, and the immediate reflex is to follow on social media. Oh, where are you on social media? And I see it happening as well. I see people having this conversation. Where are you on social media? Where can I follow you? And I've deliberately not done that. I think we can end up just collecting followers really and collecting connections as well, because that's the reflex to do that. And the number of people that I'm connected with, like I think I've got on my LinkedIn, it's something like 1,500 followers or connections or whatever it's called on there. Probably more than that, actually. And it's like, well, I can't keep relationships with that many people. I don't really know that many people. And I don't want to have to think about maintaining relationships with that number of people. And I think posting and sharing your updates on social media isn't really keeping in touch with people. You know, if I meet somebody and I feel like, yes, this could be a really good connection, or I feel like we really click, or I feel like there could potential for collaborations, or if they've said they're interested in my services, I don't want to just follow them on social media. I would rather exchange numbers if they're okay with doing that. I have a work phone, so that's exactly what it's for. And if not, if it's not at that point where you kind of meet somebody and you think, oh yeah, they're nice, but you don't necessarily feel like that immediate, yes, I need to keep in touch with this person, then I'm okay with letting that go out into the universe. And if our paths cross again, then maybe we exchange numbers next time. Maybe not. Maybe we just get to know each other from incidental meeting. And that has definitely happened with my NatWest group. Is I've got to know people over the few weeks and months really that we have been there meeting in real life. And it doesn't have to be that you follow people on social media to feel like you're connected with them. And I think if anything, it robs us of that feeling of real connection, real relationships that we actually do try and maintain, and we try and build those relationships rather than just collecting another follower like people are Pokemon really. There's definitely things that I've gained in my day-to-day life from not having the social media there. As I mentioned, the mental headspace has been the big thing. Just reconnecting with the outside world, and this theme of intentional living and not looking back on my life with regret and with feeling like I wasted my one precious life has definitely been part of this. It's been a really hard year over the last year. We lost my dad in August, and it's been the hardest year ever. And it's been a real reminder actually for me that getting away from screens and getting out there and connecting with people and connecting with nature, connecting with the things that I actually enjoy doing, living my life in an intentional way has become more important than ever for me. And I want to help other people to do that as well. So that's a big part of the mission, helping people to step away from their screens, live a real life. Not that a screen isn't a real life, but live a fulfilling life with intention. So yeah, if that sounds a bit preachy, I'm sorry, but that's just part of the thing that I love. And this happened this morning. I was walking the dog, and very lucky that we live near a nature reserve, which I'm very fortunate here. And there's a guy who's walking along talking to somebody on the phone every single morning. He has his phone out in front of him and he's on the phone. But this morning he was on the phone, but then he's looking at the blackberry bushes. And as I walked past, I heard him say, oh yeah, there's loads of them. There's loads of really big ones here. I was like, oh, are you looking for blackberries? And he said, yeah. I was like, oh, well, over the bridge, there's loads over there and there's loads there. And he was like, oh my God, I walk here every day of the year and yet I've never seen them. I just want to say, well, that's because you're on your phone every day. You're looking at that, because he literally is walking along looking at his phone. And it's amazing how when we lift our heads, when we look away from our screens, we look at the outside world, we look at the beauty that's here, how inspirational and awe-inspiring it is really. And it's so inspiring then to see that outside world, that natural world, and what is there when we step away from our phone. So all that to say, very much about intentional living, about getting time back, getting brain space back as well, I have read more books than I have in probably the last few years. So that's been great as well, because it's just made me, rather than reaching for my phone whenever I've got a break, I'll reach for my Kindle and I'll just sit and read my book or do one of the craft things that I love doing. I have so many things that I want to do that aren't screen related, and it's made me really intentional about getting on with those, really. So that's kind of the good side of it in terms of actually what it's helped me. Let's talk about, so I recorded some podcast episodes. So between episodes 136 and 141 are all about the ways that I've grown my business without social media. And I hope if you listen to those episodes, that gives you some inspiration about the main ways that I've done this, and actually how I have grown without socials. One thing I should probably say is that my business didn't grow massively with social media. So I think that was part of the reason why I felt I could step away from it, because it never brought me clients. And that's what I hear time and time again with so many of my clients and people, in my world, email subscribers, who tell me that they don't really feel that social media is doing much, but they don't feel like they can step away. They feel like, I just have to keep a presence there. And I don't think it's true. I would say don't delete your accounts. And again, no point cutting off your nose to spite your face, but put something on there to say that you're not there, and tell people where they can connect with you and how they can find out more about what you do, and make that an intentional thing. I still haven't done that yet, and I definitely will go back and do that. I've done it in my Facebook group, but I haven't done it anywhere else where I've put on there that I'm not using this anymore. Come and find me on my podcast, or come and join the Success Without Socials community. So definitely look at your data and consider how many clients are coming in through social media. And if it's none, if you're looking at your stuff and you're realizing actually it's really none, or compared to the amount of time I'm spending on this, it's really not worth the effort, then that's the point to really start thinking about, okay, what can I do that is going to bring people into my business? How can I build relationships? How can I get the word out about me? How can I start getting in front of other people's audiences? Those kind of things, which have always been the ways that I've grown my business. I think not having the social media there as almost like a fallback has made me more intentional about being in communities outside of social media, building relationships, getting my blog up and running again as well. Actually, that's one thing that I have done. And that's only been recently, probably in about the last 6 weeks or so, that I've really started making sure that when I do have an episode that I know is a cornerstone piece of content, then that will get turned into a blog. So if you were thinking about stepping back right now, I would suggest that you firstly know your numbers, so know what's happening with your figures. If you don't know that and you want some help with understanding your Google Analytics or your Google Search Console, or what's actually happening with your data, then you can book a power hour. We can have a little look at that together, and I can help you to understand whether what you're doing is actually working. And also you can think about whether what you're doing, it might be working, but if it's costing you 3/4 of your business week in terms of time or emotional bandwidth, or the extra hours that you get drawn into social media because you're just happening to be on there, then it's also considering whether it's worth it. And if you're finding that it is bringing you clients, but you know that you still want to reduce that in your business, then it's thinking about, okay, how can I start building other ways up of getting in front of people and make it more of a gradual leave of social media. Start to put a plan together of how else you could connect with people. Come and join my Success Without Socials community. It's a place where you can connect with like-minded business owners. So it's a community outside of social media. It's not noisy. It's not crazy in there. I'm building it with intention, and you can come in and help me shape the community. Let me know what you want to see in there. Let me know how you want to connect with people, and spend time in there intentionally because you want to be there, rather than just interrupting your day. That's my goal, that it doesn't just interrupt your day. So go back and listen to the episode 102. Was the start of the original series on social media is optional. So there's a few episodes after that. So I think 102 to I think it's 106. You can listen to those episodes, and that talks about why social media is harmful, why we deserve a break from it, why it is biased against women as well. So go and have a listen to those. Have a listen to the series 136 to 142 that I mentioned about the ways that I've grown my business without social media. And if you'd like to break free from social media dependency, I understand that it feels scary. I really do get it. I get that we are constantly told that we need to use social media. But there are a few ways I can help you if you are looking at breaking free. So if you want to take charge of your visibility, if you're fed up with marketing your business and it not working, and if you want your website and your Google business profile to bring you a steady stream of clients without having to create content all the time, posting and hoping and getting very little back from it, you can join the Website Growth Club for step-by-step lessons and group support, or one-to-one consulting if you prefer more tailored help for your business. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful and maybe inspired you to even just consider starting to step back from social media, starting to even think about whether this could be something you could do in your business. So hopefully that's helped you, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Website Success Show. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love if you shared it with a business owner who needs to hear that social media isn't the only way. And if you're ready to take the next step, come and join us in Success Without Socials, my community for business owners growing their business their own way. Right now, you can join for free as a founding member and help me shape the community as it grows. You can find the link at thewebsitesuccesshub.com/social. See you next time.